All right, well, let's go ahead and get things started. Welcome everybody to Mazévo Connect. My name's Brian Peck. I'm the head of sales and marketing here at Mazévo. And it's great to see everybody here joining us today. If this is your first Mazévo Connect, welcome. And if it's not, welcome as well. Mazévo Connect is our, it's just something we put together. We do these about once a month where we get everybody together to kind of share ideas and best practices. It's kind of a holdover from our days when we were over at EMS and, we did these yearly user conferences and everything. And we really enjoyed those, kind of bringing everybody together. And we just thought that, rather than doing a big production like that, we'd start with doing an online thing. And we can do these more often than we could a user conference, because usually with those, we did them like once a year. But with this, we can get together, as often as we want. So we've been doing these about once a month. And the feedback from them has been great so far. So thanks to everybody that's participated in those. Our plan today, we're going to be going through and showing you some of the product updates. Dean's going to take you through all of those here. Just some of the recent ones anyways. We're not going to go through all of them here, but at least the ones in the last few months. And also too, I should introduce, we've got a few Mazévo employees here on the call. I've got Claire DeGroat, who helps me out on the sales floor here and helps with a lot of new inquiries and demos and things like that we do. Also have Wendy Newland joining us as well. Many of you know Wendy. She does onboarding for us here at Mazévo. And then our newest employee just started this week is Joe Finley. Welcome, Joe. Joe is brand new here with us. We expanded, we decided to give Wendy some help essentially. So Wendy had been kind of manning the onboarding all herself. And we now have Joe helping her out with that. And so it's great to have Joe on here as well. Joe brings a ton of experience also implementing scheduling systems in the past. So it's great to have him here as well. So what we're going to do today, you're all on mute right now. And if you do have questions as we're going through, we love it when these things are interactive. So feel free, put your question in the chat. But if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question that way, go ahead. You can ask questions as we go. We are going to try to save about 10 minutes or so at the end for questions, Q&A as well. So you'll have time there too to ask any questions that you want. Yeah, that's about it. So with that said, I'd like to introduce our CEO, Dean Evans, and let him kind of take things away here.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning to you over there in Hawaii. So good to see everybody again. We're going to go through kind of some of it will be lightning fast. So today's topic is product updates. So that, another way to say that is what you guys put in the system this year. So with that, I'm going to share my screen here, and we're going to kind of do some show and tell today. But a couple things I want to kind of point out. These updates, last year, we made 22 updates to the system, so almost 2 a month. So the way you would find out about those, if you're curious, is this little thing down in the lower right corner. If you click on that, there's product updates right here. So this will show you like the last 2 or 3 updates that we've done. So here's some updates and some highlights. So it's not really detailed here, but it gives you some ideas. So right here is one way to be notified of updates. And if you click this learn more, it will actually take you out to our website, which is really gomazévo.com/updates. And here is in excruciating detail all of the updates and a description of what's going on here. And this is a blog, so you can actually subscribe to this if you want. Now, I think probably some of you on this already get this email. So when we do an update, we send an email out, and and that's where we kind of point you to this blog article here. So a couple different ways to get the updates. So with that, let's kind of jump in. I'm going to go back to the beginning of 2021, and a bunch of these I'm just going to rattle off just to kind of jog your memory of what we did this year. So we added to the system customer access time. And that's the time in between the setup and the event start. We introduced the ability to sequence resources, and a big shout out to the folks at Iowa. They're the ones that needed that. And so they worked through the pain and suffering of sequencing resources. So you can now reorder resources on a booking so that they come out on the confirmation and the order that you want them to come out. The other thing you can do is you can hide service providers and resources from showing up on the confirmation or the invoice. Public calendar links. So the whole public calendar got introduced. Concept of event coordinators, the ability to copy resources from one booking to another. Conflict status, the ability to put something in conflict instead of just discard it. We added the billing worksheet this year. We added the BEO this year. We added the ability to put properties on those public calendars. The next one is email. So you can brand those emails. So like I forgot my password, or, when a new user comes into the system, they have to confirm their email. So you can now kind of brand some of those and put your own verbiage there. Advanced find events came out of the ground this year. Event questions, dependent event questions is something we added to the system. Branding on the login page, so you can have some branding elements when you log in. The info only status for the EMS folks, info only kind of came back. And then we really changed statuses. Hopefully you think for the better, where we introduced this concept of a request behavior. And so how does the status interact with a request user? So that was in there. Vanity URLs, allowing you to change a published report. This one doesn't seem very big, but for people that have a room that has 2 doors, you can now get 2 room cards, or 3, how many ever doors you have. And then we enhanced a few things for deposits, where you can actually tag a deposit to a certain booking date. So that list takes us up through about September. Okay. And so what I want to do is kind of pick up from there and kind of show you some of these things, just to make sure that you know how to get to them. First thing on the list is academics. So this year we've introduced quite a bit of change to the academic modules, to where we can take academic courses from your SIS and bring it in. We have an optimizer. A lot of you on the call today don't use academics, but we have a few people that do, and that'll continue to get some updates this coming year. The next one, available rooms. So there's a couple things when you're in add new event here. The first one, if I go down here to my basket weavers, is an alert. So as you're working through an event, creating an event, there's an organization alert. So it pops up. EMS had this capability where you could put an alert on there. We kind of do it a little bit more subtle. So it's here, and if you click on it, you can put the alert message. So you would add this alert on the organization. So let me bring that up real quick so you know how to do that. So on an organization, if we go down here to basket weaving, here's the organization alert. So it's just a checkbox, and then you type in the message, and that'll show up for people. And let's go ahead. The next thing I wanted to show you, I just want to make sure everybody knows how this works. Let's say 25. So I'm going in here, I'm adding an event, and I'll pick the 24th. Let me just do this whole week. Did you guys know you could do that? Hopefully you did. You can just pick the whole week just by clicking on this over here. You can also do it if you click that up there. So just a couple little creature comforts. That's been there for a long time. That's not new. So if I hit next here. So on this particular screen, you have this tab right here. It's relatively new. It's unavailable, and it's going to tell you why the room is not available. So in these cases, as an event planner, you've got a conflict on 2 days. Now this one is actually going to be on both available and unavailable. But here's a room. If you ever wonder, why isn't my J. Moody room showing up? Well, it's got a minimum capacity. So it's going to be thrown out of any new event process here. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that you could do that. Let's see what else. That's about it in the add new event. So let's go back out. The event book got some love this last quarter, if you will. So here's the event book that we know and love. The first thing, I want to make sure everybody knows you can do drag and drop. So if you just hover over that, you'll see this little dot, dot, dot at the beginning of that green bar. If you just grab that, you can drag it down. You can drag it anywhere. And when you drop it, it comes up and says, hey, you want to change this? So I can hit cancel and it puts it back, or I could just say yes and it'll put it in there for me. So that was the first thing. Along with that, if you just hover over, you see this little white triangle. If you click on that, there's several tools here. Now, these have been here for a long time, but you can quickly make changes to that booking. And then along with that, if you double click, so we're out here on the 24th, so that's next Monday. If I want to create a booking at 1 o'clock in conference room 2, if I come down here and I click right here, I'm just double clicking in that space and it'll let me add an event. Okay, so a little different than what you did in EMS. You had to click and drag. Here we just double click and then you can come in here and change the time. And here you can set up the rest of it. A couple of things that we've added here recently is this used to always create a new event, but you can now add this to an existing event. So you're about to create a new booking and you can actually pick an event that you want it to go to, okay, by typing in. And this is that same list that you have up at the top, or you can type in an event number. So you can add this booking to an existing event. So that's relatively new. A couple other things here I just want to bring to your attention. This filter is new this year. You can come in here and filter. So by default, it's showing you all rooms, but you can say, I want all rooms with bookings. And now the list of rooms is collapsed to only those with bookings. To get rid of that filter, you just click X. Then the opposite is there. Show me only ones that are empty. So there's all the rooms that are not booked at all for that day. So as I scroll forward, you'll see that that list of rooms is going to change dynamically because these are the ones that are empty on the 25th. And there's one more option here. You can actually pick and choose what rooms you want in the book. So if you want to see conference room 1 and the J. Moody, you can do that. And now you're just filtered to those 2 rooms. Okay, so that's just a couple of things you can do in there. Let me see, add a new, oh, okay, wait a minute. There's one more thing there's more. You can now add a new organization. If I'm double clicking to add a booking, and now you can add a new organization here on the fly. We've got a couple people that are heavy book users, and they're like, well, if I've got a new organization, why do I have to go out and come back in? So you can create them here. And you can do the same with contact. Okay. Let's see here if I can find some classes. Brian, do you have classes out here?
Yeah, there should be classes in if you go to the Jacob building.
Okay, okay, let's go there.
Oh, maybe they were just in last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
The enhancement is if you're seeing classes in here because you've done course importing, or you actually are using the academic stuff, when you hover over this, you would get the instructor name in that tooltip, and you can actually search for an instructor here in the search items. Okay, so those are a couple of the adjustments we've made. Let's see, that's it for the event book. So let's go back out to the main menu. Contacts, we've added the ability to come over here. So when you're looking at your list of contacts, this little hamburger icon. I don't know who came up with it, but you can click on that and it will show you all of the events for that contact, and you can see past events. Okay, so the event tab is upcoming and then past. So let me go to Alice here. I believe she's got some coming up. So here's Alice's events that are from today forward. Okay, now I can double click. I can click on Baskets of South America and open that up right from there. If I wanted to add an event, I can just hit this plus sign. It'll start add new event with Alice as the contact. Okay, so that functionality has been there in organizations. So when I go to organizations, you have those same two icons right here. Now, advertising looks like we've shut them down. They're restricted here, and you can see this. So what that means is you can't add new events for the advertising organization. All right, let's go find an event here. So what I want to do is I'll just look for something today, and we'll do this independent study. Let's see what we've got here. So on this screen, one of the enhancements we made this year is, as you're looking at these bookings, if you start clicking on these and you start using these tools, let's say you want to change the status, you can now move this out of the way. So these windows that pop up are all movable. So that's any of these, so, right? So you get the little hand. So if you're like, well, what did I pick? So before you couldn't do that. It was just static, and you were like, well, what did I pick if you forgot what you picked? So that's one way to do that. Okay. Let's see, changes history button. How many of you have ever hit this little button over here? Hopefully somebody has. Somebody on this call has got to have hit this button. It's history. So now we've always had history on every level. So if I click on this first booking here and I go into it, we've always had history here. This is the history of changes of that booking. Now, if I come back out, this is a history of all of the things that have happened on this event. And I picked a really bad one to show you here because it just shows you when it was created. Let's see here if I can find one here. Well, there's my inventory test. I was in here messing with this for another thing I want to show you. If I click here, you can see the different events. So we changed the organization, we changed the name, things like that. So you can see the overall change history of that event with just one click. So really useful if you want to know what's changed. Okay. Let's go back to find events here. We've added a few columns that could be useful to you in advanced find events. If you click here, you'll get a list of additional columns. Now it's kind of deceptive. If you scroll down here, these are all of the columns that you can choose from while you're doing advanced find events. So we've added a couple of things here at the bottom of this list, and it's when was the booking created and who created it. So if you ever wanted to find all of the bookings that Wendy added, you could come in here and put that in and say, I want to see that. And then when you see the results, you can filter by that and see who put things in. The other thing you can do here that was asked for was the day of the week. So if I just start typing into that field, I can see the day of the week. So let's just go ahead and run today, the next 7 days. Didn't want to add a filter, just wanted to hit search. And so now you'll see these two columns that we added over here. So who created it? And then the day of the week is right over here. Where's my day of the week? Oh, there it is. It's right next to the day. So now with it over here, you could come in here and search for the day of the week and say, I want Fridays. Right. And just, since I'm a lazy typer, I just type in part of that. So that's what these little filter buttons do up here. So But that's a new thing, just a couple of new columns that we've added here. Just so you know, your event questions are available down here as columns. So you want to see who answered the question, who is alcohol going to be served, you can do that and it'll show up in the results. Okay. Invoicing. So there's a couple things that have changed in invoicing. The one thing is when you create an event, I should have gone back and let me go back to my using a podium. The one thing you can do is when you're down here and you're adding services, so let's go add some AV to this and say a microphone, and we can add that. If you change the pricing of this, you can come in and change the price. You now have the ability, you should be able to do hourly. When you do hourly pricing, you can do it based on event hours or service hours, or you can just type in a number of hours that you want to bill them. So this is the new feature that we've added. So service hours, how do you get service hours on this? You change this and you say, well, I want this AV to be there from 2 to 3, right? So you can put your time in there. So this is what it would use to calculate the hourly, the number of hours, okay? Okay, so then let's go over, there's a lot of stuff, so that's why I'm kind of zooming through this really quick. There's a couple of things that we've put in invoicing, just little creature comforts, very subtle. I'm going to show you this invoice right here, and you'll see that the microphone is, we're giving it to them for free. It's not discounted, it's just free. There is no price. So what you can do is on your invoicing department, you have an option of setting that and says, do you want to exclude items that don't have a price? Now, if you discounted this sandwiches to 0, the price is still $7.75, the discount $7.75 per unit. The amount over here may be 0, but you'd still want to show that to the customer. It's this one right here that you'd want to say, well, why am I showing you something on an invoice that doesn't even have a price? And again, you may want that, you may not. So there's an option to do that on your department, okay? The other thing you have is an option at the bottom of the invoice, just like you had on the confirmation, you can have a recap by service provider or by charges down here, okay? And that's an option that you can set for invoicing. And you can set the same thing for confirmations as well. So the other thing that you can do on invoicing that we added, let's see if I can find a good example of this. You can actually, I don't have a good example, but some people like to have the notes. So I just said, I've got one podium and I could have put notes in there. For the most part, you don't need to show those notes on an invoice. It's more kind of, hey, we're going to put the podium in the back of the room. That's more kind of confirmation or BEO kind of information and not necessarily invoicing related. However, some people want to be able to show those notes on the invoice. And the same thing, there's an option to be able to turn those on or off. So let me go show you that. In settings, you would go to your invoicing department. And in our demo database, we only have one, and you have printing options. So you can say, I want to show those totals. That's the total recap at the bottom. And do you want to exclude 0 priced items? That's right here. Now, for the notes, to show the notes, that's over here on the service provider. So if we go to audio visual, you've got this checkbox. Do you want to show any kind of notes for any resource on the invoice? So you control it at the service provider level and not at the invoicing level. So it's right here. So, okay. Now, if you check this box, I'll just explain this real quick. If this is internal, then the requester can't select it, and anything in the AV category would not show on a confirmation or on an invoice. So if you If you literally had a service provider and resources underneath it that were strictly for your internal use, you can hide those off of that. The customer wouldn't see those. Okay, other little creature comforts is this right here. We broke this up and say, I want to look for payments, I want to look for deposits. But if you're really trying to reconcile your cash, there are times you want to see all of the monies received on one document. So we now allow you to combine those together. Let's see if we have any data here. We don't. I'd have to open that up a little bit further. Anything that way. No, Brian doesn't take payments. So he's not in our demo database. But again, you would have the ability to see both deposits and payments on find invoices that way. So, all right. The next one is a big one, notifications. So a lot of you EMS users use notifications. I want to be notified when a new booking is added, and I want to know when catering was added. And from your EMS days, it was a very complex thing to configure. So we added that to the system. And a few of you knew it was broken when the request didn't come in. So as a user, you opt in or out of this under profile and preferences. And so right here, you have this tab that's new. It's called notifications. And you get these three options here. Do you want to be notified of new requests? Do you want to be notified of events entered from other users? Okay, so let's say you're an event planner for building 1 and somebody else adds an event. They're an event planner and they're a global administrator and they add something into your building. So this would notify you of people, other event planners adding events, not requests, adding events into your building. So you get an email on that. And then notify me about service order changes. So this could be used by an AV department, a catering department. If you say, notify me about things in the following services, these are your list of service providers, and any additions or changes to events that have these services on them, this user would get notified via email. So these are email notifications. They're going to show up in your inbox. So I'm going to show you one of these. This is what it does. So I'm going to open my, you're not going to see the email, but when it opens, it's going to say, this one is a request, and it's going to say, this request was changed. Do you want to view the bookings? Now I'm going to click the link in the email, and it's going to come over here and open a window in my browser, and it's going to show me the event and all of the changes and additions made to this. So this event, this summer planning, has 2 bookings. And if I click on it, it's now going to show me critical booking information change. Critical information is date, time, room, and status. And you'll notice the room is highlighted. And if I hover over it, it's going to show me what's the old value and the new value and who made the change. So there's this, you know, all this detail is in here for you. And the same thing would happen if somebody added a resource to this. You would see the same thing. It would say new. You could hover over it and see who added it. So if you needed to see the history in a different way, you could come over here and see all of the detail, and you could see the resource history as well. So a couple of things. Now, when I clicked it in my email, it opened this link in my default browser. If I happen to be logged into Mazévo in this browser, and I am on this window, this tab, you get the option here of clicking this to open the event. So right here, I can open the event. Again, if I'm an event editor or an event planner, I can open the event and see exactly what was there. So without having to log in, you could, I mean, you're already logged in on this tab. If you're not logged in, it would stop you on this screen. You wouldn't have that button. So lots of great stuff with notifications. So net, we've reduced all of the notifications down to just a couple of checkboxes. These two at the bottom are a system option that we can turn on for you. The request at the top, that's kind of been there for everybody. So you're already kind of probably opted into that. So these are requests coming in from requesters versus other event planners. So it sounds like somebody's killing my dog in the background there. Sorry, she'll stop here in a minute. So that's notifications.
Hey, Dean, there are a couple of questions here. One
Sure.
is, this is from Jacob, the notify me of requests and apply to web. Does that apply to web request, like new requests, or to service requests, or both? Like if they're requesting AV or catering or something like that.
So that new request, this is primarily booking related here. So this is it's gonna tell you anything, any new requests or any changed requests, and those would include the services that go on there. Okay. This last one here would be, I just want to know about things that have AV on. So it's kind of focused into just AV, but this is for, doesn't matter who added the event down on here. If you want to be notified of facilities and anything that touched facilities, that's what this last one would do. But this is for requesters. This first one. Does that seem?
I see a thumbs up there. So
Good.
that's good.
Good.
All right. There was also a question here from Eric, and this is going back to when you were talking about notes on the invoice and displaying that way. He's just asking if you can have types of notes that show and also notes that do not show.
Okay, yes, the answer is yes to that. So let me get a little creative in how I would do that. What you would probably do is come in here and create a resource. And let me see if Brian's got one here called Note. So you can have a resource that's called Note. And if you put it in this resource grouping of Note, it literally is just a note field. You can't price these things. And so when you come in here, you could say this is, no, I'm lying to you, Eric, I'm lying. You can keep it off of the confirmation or invoice, but you can't turn it on or off. It's at the service provider level. So all notes would be at the service provider level, not individual note by note. So sorry, you got me. So,
but you can have notes when you're adding it to like when you're actually putting it on a event. There are two types of notes that we have on a resource, right?
Well, there's the original note, and then there's a special instruction.
The special instructions, yeah.
But
and
both of
both show.
Those both would
Okay.
go along. They're either hidden or they're both there if they are there. So
okay.
So
okay.
But okay. Any other questions on?
Those are the two that have come in so far.
Okay.
I've seen some good feedback though. Some people definitely like some of these features that you've been showing. There's some positive feedback in there. So great to see that.
Good.
Yeah.
Other things that we've worked on this year, manage operations. Got a couple customers out there that are heavy into the operations, and we've listened to them and put some of their things in here. So operations, manage operations, at least on the web here. You can actually, when we originally did this, we're thinking, well, why would a worker ever go to the web? Why wouldn't they just use their mobile? So we kind of made the service worker role phone-based and the manager role browser-based. And clearly that was not enough. So we've now merged those. So if you have the service worker role only, you can still get to manage operations and see things in here and mark things as completed or in progress and things like that. So we've kind of brought those together a little bit with that. What a worker wouldn't be able to do is assign staff. But there's been quite a few things in here. We've kind of cleaned up some of the settings and filtering in particular. So you're filtering and who are the service providers you care about, and who's on your staff. We've kind of condensed that into one spot right here. Work items. These are items that you want your operations staff to do, like clean a closet, check the bulbs on the projectors, clean a room or something like that, but they're not tied to a booking. One of the things that we put in here was the ability to add, when you add a work item, you can now do that across multiple days. So you can do that, I want it for every Monday within this date range, or, you can do it every day of the week, and you can do it for a specific time, and you can assign a staff member to it. So prior to that enhancement, it was one day at a time, but now you can quickly go in and add work items for multiple dates. So those are some of the things we did in operations. A couple of things I want to show you under preferences that we've done here. Now I'm in here as a global admin. So just to point out, you can, if you're always typing the same event name in, and I don't think you are, you can set a default there. That's probably more appropriate for a requester. And the preferred building, we kind of made some adjustments a couple of weeks ago on this. If you were an event planner and a requester, this kind of leaned towards the requester, and we've switched it, and it now is going to lean more towards the event planner. And I don't know how to describe that any better. Wendy, you got any thoughts on how that worked? What we changed there? Essentially, the building, it really, the preference goes to the event planner. I mean, even though the requester may be in that building, they wouldn't see anything. But if a requester could make request in building 2 and you're an event planner in building 1, you're really only going to get to see building 1 here as a choice for your preferred building. So it's a minor change. I don't know that that's going to impact too many people. You'd have to be in that special category of being both an event planner and a requester. And I think everybody on this phone is probably a global admin. So you're kind of completely out of that.
That's exactly right, Dean. Sorry, I was on mute. It's for those customers that are requesters for certain buildings, but they are the owner of other buildings where they can book in. So they have 2 kind of preferred building type situations. Yep.
And as you create new events, if you've ever wanted to stop it from defaulting to the current time, you just come in here to profile and preferences and check that. And now when you go to add a new event, it's going to ask you for a start and end time. So a couple of those things. If you're getting emails, every time you send out an email confirmation, if you're getting BCC'd on that, if you want to stop that, you can check that and it'll stop giving you confirmations, CCing you on those, filling up your inbox. Reports, report analytics. I don't really need to show you this, but as you get into the results of that, you now can drill all the way in and open the event up. Yeah, I guess I'll show it. Just didn't take that long to open this up. We'll do last month. And then from here, I can open up that training event. Because if you're looking at charges and stuff, you're probably trying to figure out, well, what's going on around it. So you can drill in. That's relatively new, but probably not a heavy used item. Inventory control.
Hey, Dean, there's a question. Jane was just asking a question on that preferred building. She was just wanting to know if you could put in room tags in there instead of picking a building.
Well, Jane, the short answer is no. You can't. It's one building. On our to-do, I think you should be able to come in here and pick buildings and room tags. You should be able to kind of pick all of those together. And at this point, we don't do it. We probably start with multiple buildings. I'd be interested to see how you would want to put room tags in there. Is it, you probably just have a couple of rooms that you're dealing with and you want to focus your that's where you're adding new events and things. So, but at this point, we probably start with multiple buildings before we threw tags in there. Sir, somebody's writing that down, aren't they, please? So, inventory control for requesters. So what happened until recently is if you had a resource that was inventoriable, had an inventory quantity, let me make sure everybody's on the same page here. How do you make somebody a resource inventoriable? You look down here at this column. So if you wanted to inventory stage pieces, you could come in here and just say, yes, I want an inventory and here's my quantity. So when I talk inventoried resources, it's ones that you've checked this box on. So when we look at this, you've got 6-foot tables and you have 10 of them. So you really shouldn't be able to use more than 10 of those at a time. You should be able to use 10 of those in the morning and 10 of them in the afternoon. But if that event overlaps with another event, no, you shouldn't be able to, you should not have at any given time more than 10 in use. So the requester, we didn't do a very good job of stopping them when they added a request for that. So let me go ahead and I'm going to log out here and log back in as a requester and show you what I'm talking about. And if I go into my events, I've got an example of one here. Let me look over here. This one right here. So what would happen is as you're going through and you're making a request, we would just let you pick those 10 tables and go on. Now, we never looked at what was in use, okay? And now we do. And what would happen is at the end of adding a new request, you're going to get a message that says, here, I'll just add one in here really quick. Favorite club, the basket weave. So I got the debate club. Okay, so we'll go out here to the 26th. I'll do the student center. That's not where the magic happens. I'll just pick 1:30. Hopefully everybody sees that. And now I want to do facilities. And here's that 8-foot table. So I had 14 max. So let's go in here. I think podiums is probably in use. If I come in here and say 3, and then answer my question, you're going to get this alert. So we don't stop them because if we didn't want to interrupt the flow of them making the request, we just give them this warning. So, hey, some of your inventory some of your resources aren't available. Now, what they would want to do is go in here to this, they hopefully would go in and go, well, what happened? They click on that event. They can go in here to this booking now, and they can see this flag, resolve inventory issues. Now, notice there's nothing on here. My resources don't show. I only picked one resource, so it's not there. But if they click on this, it's going to show them the resources that they couldn't get. Okay. And so I asked for a podium. I requested 3, but at the time of this booking, only 2 were available. Well, you have 2 options. Now I'm a requester. I can use the available, or I can just delete my request for the podium. So if I say use available, it's now going to add those 2 podiums on to my event, and here they are. So we've kind of given a way to do that to the requester to let them use what's available. So instead of trying, it gets really complex if you had a multi-day event and on one day you had 2 podiums and on another day you had 3, it gets really complex to kind of manage some of that. So this is the way we chose to kind of to do that. Now, the same thing would happen for an event planner. When they open up a booking, they'd have the same kind of thing. Now, you've always had the tool in the event editor to show you those inventory conflicts. So, so anyway, there's that. Let me go back in as my event planner. All right. Just a few things left here on my list. We added on security policies. So if you're using advanced security, you actually have this new idea of maximum daily hours. So for these rooms in this security group, you can actually put a quota of hours. So if you don't want them to exceed 4 hours of usage across all of those rooms on a given day, this quota would be enforced and stop them. So that's, you could have 4 1-hour bookings, 1 4-hour booking, whatever it is, it just can't add up to more than 4 hours. That's a little bit different than max. This is how long a booking can I create. Okay, you can only create a 60-minute booking in this case. So that's a new thing we put in there. One other thing while I'm in here, we just added a couple of these icons here. So we've added a few new icons for setup types and for service providers. Probably the best feature for people that need, if you ever need to close a room temporarily, let's say you're taking it offline for maintenance. The only way you could have done that in the past, there were really 2 ways. You could have inactivated the room, which is kind of harsh because then it's not there for anybody. Or you could have created an event with bookings in that room. You create a special status and a special event type, you know, called closed for maintenance or something like that. And then you have to worry about every time you ran any kind of usage report, making sure you didn't get that in there, right? If you come in here now to rooms, we have this new, very simple way to close a room. So if I wanted to close any room, I just come in here and I say, I want to add a room closure, and I pick my room. So if I want the J Moody, we kind of saw that a couple times. If I want to close that, I can close it for whatever time period I want, right? Start date and time, end date and time, save that, and the room's now closed. Okay, and that'll show up on the event book. So let's go look at that. Now it doesn't warn you if you've closed that and there's stuff in the way. So here's the J Moody room. You can see right here that it's closed. Okay. Now, so that's a great way of knocking a room offline for any period of time that you want there. Now you can have multiple room closures for a single room. So if you want to close it for the month of February and the month of May, I don't know why you'd do that, but you could, right? You could have more than one room closure in there. And if you need to get rid of that, it's really simple to just go in and delete it, right? So, but that's room closures. So that's a whirlwind tour of what we did last year. So with that, I know we've got about 10 minutes left, so we can open it up for questions. So. Does anybody, any questions?
Thanks, Jacob. So is anybody using, I imagine some of you are probably using a handful of these things already, and appreciate those of you that have put in your feedback so far on those things. Oh, Lindy's got a request for manage operations. She's wanting to see if you could check multiple rooms and say they are all ready at once. So kind of like set is ready kind of thing, but just check, check, check.
Oh, so maybe like right here, if I'm looking at all of these, go check, 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 set is ready. Kind of a managerial kind of thing. Yeah, we could, that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, I like that.
And Jacob's asking about wanting to add multiple contacts when you're creating a new event rather than just the one and then adding more on the back end?
Well, you can't do that today. Probably not a bad idea that somewhere on this screen right here, if you just said add other contacts, you could do that. Most people are trying to hurry through this because it's really the next two screens where you're picking your dates and seeing availability. If you go through here and you're starting to add these contacts and you can't get them in a room, then you've kind of wasted a little bit of time there. But we could look at putting, the add multiple contacts here. We can put that on our list. So. Anything else?
Jane's put a request in for requesters to select a old or an archived event and copy it to recreate a future request. That's definitely something we've heard in the past.
Yeah.
People wanting to do.
Yeah. Jane, that scares me. If Kathy's on here from Park Cities, yeah, same thing. The problem, it gets a little complex because we're going to have to turn it back into a request data. So it's an approved event. All of the approvals have been approved. And now you're saying take that old event and copy it forward. So we'd have to strip off any secondary approvals, and kind of refresh those. I guess it's not impossible. It just gets really complex with security if you're using advanced security. And, some of those rooms may have shifted, or you've changed the security group in between the time the original event was created a year ago and today. It may get kind of complex. So that's why we've kicked that one down the road. So we'll put your name on the item or next to it, next to Kathy's. So
yeah, and Jane, you're asking if they could just change the date on an old event. Today, the way it works is if it's an older event that's already in the past, a requester is going to be locked out. They can't make any changes or updates to anything. Really, they're kind of forced to send you an email or something like that says, hey, I'd like to redo my event from last year onto these new dates, and then you'd have to copy it for them. It's basically the only option right now.
okay. All right. Anything else?
Right. Well, we're about at our time here. We really appreciate everybody joining in on the call today. Hope this was helpful for you. Great feedback too. We love the feedback here, and we're going to keep a copy of the chat and everything. So we'll have your comments and everything on here, and we'll add those in. But if there's anything else or something you think of that we didn't address or that we didn't get to, just you can send me an email. Everybody on this call has my email address. You can just reply to the invite or whatever that way, or just send it to support and we'll get it that way too. But yeah, we really appreciate your participation today, and keep your eyes open for the next Mazévo Connect. It'll be sometime in February once we get that all finalized, and look for an invite to that. So with that, we'll let you go and get on about your days. So thanks again.
All right, thanks, everybody. Take care.